Good morning. My name is Jim Annis, president of the Probus Club of Burlington, and with your consent, I will act as chairman of the 34th Annual General Meeting of Members being held today on March 18th. Just as an administrative matter, I want to tell you that given the virtual setting in which we find ourselves conducting this meeting, we may not always be able to see nor hear all of our members, so we have prearranged with certain members to make motions and others as seconders to the motions. And as the motions arise, I will identify those members. We also have spotters to review the votes. The annual meeting for 2021 is hereby called to order. And Bob Lalonde has prepared some slides for your viewing pleasure so that you don't have to look at me throughout this. I've been informed by Tom Evans that there is a quorum of members present to hold our annual meeting. The first order of business is to review the minutes of last year's annual meeting. John Bembenek has made a motion to approve the minutes of the 2020 annual meeting as circulated with the notice of this meeting. And Gary Henley has seconded the motion. Are there any questions concerning these minutes?
I don't see any, Jim.
Okay, seeing none and hearing none, may I have a show of hands for the motion? Against the motion? The motion is carried. The next order of business is the financial statements for last year. Mike Binder has moved a motion to approve the annual financial statements for December 31, 2020 as circulated with the notice of the meeting. And Bob Lalonde has seconded this motion. Are there any questions concerning these financial statements?
Howard's got a question. You have to take himself off of mute.
My question is, I didn't think we were supposed to be carrying a balance or any money in our clubs.
I'm not aware of that.
The reason
It will
I
be,
asked,
yeah, it will be lower by the end of the, maybe someone can check the bylaws and get back to you on that.
Can I make a suggestion here?
Sure, Tom.
There's nothing wrong with maintaining a balance. It ensures the sustainability of the organization in the event that something goes awry. And those funds are there to support activities of the organization. So given what's happened over the past, we've got something that what might be considered comfortable as we proceed into opening again.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Are there any other questions?
I don't see any other hands up, Jim.
Okay, may I have a show of hands for the motion? Against the motion? The motion is carried. The next order of business is the report of the nominating committee. If we can have that slide, Bob. Gentlemen, past President Ed Eves, who is also chairman of the nominating committee, has made a motion to accept the nominating committee's report and slate of officers for the 21-22 year. And Bob Dickinson has seconded this motion. I've also been advised by Ed Eves that no further nominations have been received for the positions named in the report. Are there any questions concerning the report?
I don't see any, Jim.
Okay, thank you. May I have a show of hands for the motion to elect these gentlemen to these positions? Any, show your hands for being against the motion. And if you vote against, you're going to have to take a position on the board.
Nobody wants to join the board, Jim.
Okay, the motion is carried. On behalf of all the members, I want to congratulate the new members of the of officers and wish them well in the coming year, and I'll be there with you. Finally, the following motion is made by Dave Rokosh. The club executive and officers for the year 2020 and 2021, and the associated committees, subcommittees, interest groups, and agents have acted in good faith and in the best interests of the members in the exercise of their fiduciary responsibilities. The members are asked to approve all such actions and to hold these individuals harmless from any errors or omissions in exercising their discretion on behalf of the members. And the motion has been seconded by Ray Paquette. Are there any questions concerning this motion?
Don't see any, Jim.
Okay, may I have a show of hands for the motion? Any against the motion? The motion is carried. Bob, will you go back to that one? Yeah. Each year we send a shout out to our charter members, those men that were here 34 years ago with the forethought and drive to start this club, the third club in Canada for Probus. And to them, we are always grateful, and we thank these two remaining founders. The next slide, Bob. Gentlemen, on your behalf, I also want to salute all of our past presidents who have been leaders and who have nurtured our club over these past 34 years. Next slide, Bob. During the year, we learned of the deaths of 13 of our members, namely those shown on this slide. And during the year, we have observed a moment's silence for each of these members. Please take a moment now to read this list and remember them. Thank you. Next slide, Bob. My remarks as president have been published in the March issue of the newsletter, and I want to thank you for your support and to reiterate that my memories of this past year will be of friendship and knowledge and generosity. And to my executive team, I again express my thanks and gratitude for your dedication and service. I now have a motion from Gary Hindley to terminate this annual meeting, and Tom Evans has seconded the motion. May I have a show of hands for the motion to terminate? Against the motion? The motion is carried. I now declare the annual meeting terminated and I'm most pleased to turn the podium over to our new president, Ken Bowman, who will continue with our regular meeting.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim, for a job well done. You've led us through a most difficult year with humor and good grace, and you can now sit back in that comfy chair of yours and enjoy the rest of the day. And to show our collective thanks, Jim has been presented with a plaque and his gavel of authority. He can now wear with pride a past president's pin, which looks sort of like this, which was the pin I got when I was past president of the Grimsby Club. Now I want to acknowledge a guest who's with us today, Bob Shaw. And Bob is a guest of How I Refuse. And our membership chairman, Bob Dickinson, will now coordinate the introductions of 2 new members. So over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Ken. I'll just get the presentation brought up here. Okay, so we have 2 new members that are going to be introduced today, gentlemen. They were both approved a month ago by the executive. The first one to get introduced will be Barry Hunter. And Barry's being introduced by our past president, Jim. Go ahead, Jim. Jim, you on mute? Jim, you on mute?
I'm sorry. Barry Hunter was born in Toronto in 1939 and attended Ralston Public School, Fairbanks Memorial, and York Memorial Collegiate Institute. Following graduation from high school, 5 years at University of Toronto and Ontario College of Education, he earned degrees in physical education, mathematics, and Ontario High School Specialty Teaching Certificate. The next 4 years were spent teaching physical education and math at Royal York and Burnham Thorpe Collegiates in Etobicoke. He then had a change of mind. His education continued at University of Western Ontario, where he earned a master's degree in physiology and a medical degree. This was followed by a fellowship in obstetrics and gynecology. He practiced his specialties in Burlington and Milton from 1980 until 2019 and is now retired and continues to live in Burlington. Barry has a wonderful wife, Marion, and 6 great grandchildren. These kids have added 14 grandchildren, or wonderful children. These wonderful children have added 14 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren to the family. His major interests in retirement continue to be family, golf, bridge, travel, friends, and exercise. And I know he likes to play poker on the odd evening. Congratulations, Barry, and welcome to the Probus Club.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Barry. And now we move on. We're going to have Jack Bernhardt introduce the second new member this month, Bill Valcour. Jack, you can take yourself off of mute and proceed.
Should be off of mute, am I?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. Yes, I'm pleased to introduce Bill Valcour to the group. Bill was born in Hamilton many decades ago, like many of us, and didn't stray too far from Hamilton. He has lived in Burlington, where he presently is, Stony Creek, Grimsby, and Oakville, with an exception being a few years in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Communication has been Bill's career. Positions in Bell Canada as general manager for the 416-905 area codes, with AT&T as a consultant in Saudi Arabia, with Rogers Cable as vice president of operations, with Advanced Technologies as vice president, and MasTech Canada as president. Bill remains active as a director with MasTech and with Big Country Midstreams Projects ULC and Linval Consulting, where he's the sole proprietor. Bill enjoys family time and holiday celebrations with his wife, Linda, his spouse of 54 years, and their 2 children, 3 grandchildren, and even more enjoyment is planned with another grandchild to arrive in the near future. Bill and Linda have done extensive traveling in the Baltic, Europe, Middle East, Far East, Africa, Caribbean, USA, and Canada. Bill and his family have been all about exploring new places, cultures, cuisines, rituals, and styles of living. Bill's past community involvement included being president of the Optimist Clubs of Oakville, Hamilton, and Winona, in addition to being a director at the Newport Yacht Club and the Wentworth Condo Corp. Presently, Bill, in his Florida community, is editor and publisher of Casa del Sol Sun-Times and is a webmaster. That's Bill.
Right.
Welcome, Bill. So
Thank you.
to
Welcome. Thank you, Jack.
to both of them, and I turn the meeting back over to you, Ken.
Thanks, Bob. And welcome, Barry, and welcome, Bill. I look forward to meeting you both. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Now, I want to ask Kevin Harrer to take the helm and introduce today's speaker and get this ship underway.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Thanks very much. And I just want to say a big thank you to Jim for all the help and support he's given me over the past year. Great work there, Jim. And okay, as you can see, I'm still wearing a bit of my green here, Irish green in honor of St. Paddy's Day. And in keeping with that spirit, we have two Irish guests with us today. Our speaker, Jeff Saunders, who hails from Dublin. That was my hometown, and his brother, Doug. Doug, I think, is wearing some green. I don't know, that shirt looked gray, but I told him to wear green.
It's
I
green.
better be wearing green. Doug now lives in Oakville, and oh yeah, that's green. That's pretty good. Now lives in Oakville and has kindly offered to introduce his brother Jeff, who is zooming in all the way from the UK. This is the first time we've had an out-of-country speaker, so keep our fingers crossed. I'm sure it's all going to work great. Jeff is here to regale us with a fascinating account of his voyage across the Pacific on a tall ship. We're all looking forward to that with great anticipation. But before I hand over to Doug to do the intro, a word, I've got this now, a word about how to view the recording of today's proceedings. It's a little different this time round. For copyright reasons, Jeff's presentation won't be directly available on our YouTube channel, but you will get a link. You'll see a link that will be sent out in the next couple of days, and you can watch it via that link. The rest of the meeting, today's meeting, the AGM, the speaker introduction, the Q&A, will be posted on our website in the normal way. This will have a different link. So in a nutshell, this month you will receive 2 links to see the whole meeting rather than the usual one. Wow, got that out of the way? Everyone's clear? Good. Okay, Doug, it's all over to you now to do the intro.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And good morning, gentlemen of the Probus Club of Burlington. It's a great honor for me to introduce my brother, Jeff Saunders. He's my only sibling, he's my favorite brother, and I'm very proud of him. You've read something about him and his life in the Probus newsletter, but believe me, there's a lot more to him than that. First of all, he's as fit as a fiddle. He swims lengths at his local pool several times a week. He tells me that he's ridden his bicycle over 6,000 kilometers in the UK in the last 24 months. And also over the last few years, he has cycled overseas in South Africa, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Switzerland, and Germany. And he thinks nothing of walking to his daughter's house and back again to his home in Dorking, a journey of some 38 kilometers. Fit indeed he is. He has lived and worked in the UK, as well as in Australia, Brazil, Norway, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, and Zambia, to mention a few. And likely he has also visited more countries than the rest of us all put together. He is the consummate traveler, adventurer, and explorer. I know this is for a fact because I have shared some of these adventures with him. We traveled to and explored Panama together a number of years ago. I joined him on a leg or two of this trans-Pacific voyage that he's going to talk about this morning. Together we went to Cape Canaveral and watched a nighttime rocket launch. And a few years ago we sailed out to the Isles of Scilly and explored them when I was caught up in the UK for 10 days during the Icelandic volcano eruption in 2010. He delights in new adventures, seeing new sights, especially those off the beaten track, in meeting new people, exploring new foods, and learning new skills. I'm sure that you're going to enjoy his presentation. Please welcome him, my brother Jeff Saunders.
Thank you very much. Just before I start, Bob, you need to stop your recording and I need to start mine, isn't that correct?
And so everyone, if you have a question, raise your hand and Gary will recognize you. When he recognizes you, take yourself off mute, ask Jeff your question, and then go back on mute. Okay, Gary?
Thank you. I think we had a question from Chris Walker to start with.
Thanks, Gary. Absolutely fascinating. I loved the addition of the poem at the end. It really, helped set the romance of the entire voyage. One question I had is that you're obviously pretty high up when you're looking down from the fighting tops or whatever. How high are you actually off the deck when you're up there?
At the very top, well, fighting tops is, there is a tradition, okay, you're a good 100 foot and perhaps a little bit more. The foremast is probably taller than the ship is long, so it's
wow.
It's probably about 110 foot. But the fighting tops are not quite that far up. But there is a tradition that the sort of, the roundy thing at the top of the mast is called the truck. And there's the tradition on a voyage like that when you actually at first have all the sails set, that the youngest crew member kisses the truck.
Right.
And fortunately, the youngest crew member was actually the sailmaker on the ship. She was in her 20s, and so it was unlikely to be any of us old guys who were going to be the youngest.
Right. Age has its own rewards. Yeah. What I hadn't heard these terms before. I've heard of crow's nest. Where would that be?
Well, I'm not sure that's it is a word that's used. I mean, often on whale ships, they had a lookout position there, and because they'd have people up for some time, they would have it protected in some way from the weather.
Right.
So you'd have a kind of a surround to it, but it isn't a term that I've heard used. It's not. I've never been on a ship where somebody said, "Oh, you should go to the crow's nest."
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. As I say, it's just absolutely fascinating. Did you see whales at all? I know you saw dolphins.
Indeed. Yes, we did. We saw whales, whale shark, and so we did.
Wow, fantastic!
It was. I mean, at one juncture in amongst not on this particular voyage, but on another stage in the around Tonga, we came across humpback whales that were actually, they when a female is ready to mate, there's obviously many males who are quite willing to mate with her, and there's some considerable competition to do this. And we came across these people, these whales, just doing just that all around the ship, which was quite exciting, and they're big animals.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you very much. It's great information, and I'm very envious.
You're welcome.
Stan, I see you got your hand up. You want to ask a question? You have to unmute yourself first.
Thoroughly enjoyed that wonderful presentation. My question is, did you have an auxiliary drive for places like the Panama Canal or where you couldn't sail?
Okay, so the ship was built in 1949, and it was built as a trading ship. And of course, well before then, any ship that was, basically powered by sail would have an auxiliary engine. So yes, we did. In fact, we had the original one. And you know, it's kind of romantic to think that you could do all of this without using the engine, but actually, you know, at the end of the day, we live in the 21st century. We have planes to catch. We have you know, things like that. So yeah, the engine was certainly used. I mean, I would say 95% of the journey was under sail, but of course, you know, like moving into harbor and things like that. Although at the very end of the voyage, when we arrived back in New Zealand, when I finally was aboard, when they arrived back in New Zealand, and Jim was the captain, we came into the Bay of Islands, and we had to clear in through the port of Opua. And if you've ever been there, it's quite small, quite a tight entrance to it. And we sailed in there through the Bay of Islands. We sailed in and swung around in the really tight area there and dropped anchor under sail. The engine, we didn't use the engine at all. It was really impressive. Impressive piece of seamanship by Captain Jim.
Jeff, I see a question from Bob Shaw. You wanted to know if you had caught any fish.
Yes, yes, not many. We trailed fish lines from time to time, and we didn't catch many fish. We lost the lures quite often, so there must have been things out there. But the fish that we did catch on different occasions were mahi-mahi, and they're kind of tragic in that they tend to go in pairs. And if ever you catch one, you'll almost certainly catch the other one. And they are very good eating and very fresh. But I didn't show you the pictures of Easter Island, but it took us 3 weeks to get from the Galapagos Islands to Easter Island. And on the way there, I was posting entries from Captain Cook's journal about him approaching Easter Island. And one of the things he said was that they saw plenty of fish, he said, but we catch few as we are such poor fishers. And I thought, well, if Captain Cook can admit to that, we'll have to admit to it as well.
I see another question from Tom Evans. He's asking, did you experience any rough weather?
You know, you know the name, the Pacific Ocean, you know how it comes about, because Magellan, when he first got through into the Pacific Ocean, he experienced sort of weeks of very good weather, and was a mistaken impression that it was a Pacific Ocean. In fact, on this particular leg of the voyage, we had not any serious rough weather. We had some I would say, strong blows, but not serious. But on subsequent occasions, the ship, that ship, Soren Larsen, was first one time was caught in a cyclone, which very nearly did for it in the Southern Ocean. On another occasion, a couple of days sailing out of Auckland, it was hit by a rogue wave, which basically took the deck house off. And if it wasn't, Captain Jim was in charge again, and he shepherded the ship back to New Zealand. So it's yeah, you know, the thing is that these things have risks associated with them. In fact, I have a little sort of side presentation which I sometimes give of ships and things that happen. I mean, the ship that you saw in the poster for the Bounty, Mutiny on the Bounty film, they made a replica ship for that, and that sailed around for many years doing various things, films and stuff. And that was sunk in Hurricane Sandy. I don't know if you remember it. And they lost 2 crew members when that went down. And then we've had various other ships. But following my voyage on Soren Larsen and having learnt the ropes, so to speak, I then volunteered on the Irish sail training ship, which was called Asgard. And Asgard went down in the Bay of Biscay in 2009. So they're not. There was fortunately no casualties on that. But it's not. You know, you sort of tend to think of these things as risk-free. Of course, they're not. And then your own ship, Concordia, went down in the South Atlantic with when it was on charter to Class Afloat. No, again, no casualties. We're very fortunate.
Ken, how are we doing for time?
Yeah, one more question perhaps?
I have one here in the chat from Ray Paquette. He says, do you have any generator for electricity? And of course, I
Yes.
would also have to ask, how is the cell service out there?
That was the health service. Well, we did have, yes, there was a generator for electricity and batteries, and it used to run twice a day. The generator used to run twice a day, but it was also important because that drove the water maker. I mean, when you're at sea like that, you obviously can't take enough fresh water. And again, living in our old times as we do, we expect a shower every day, or at least every second day. And so the water maker was powered by the generator as well. And often there was somebody on board who had at least first aid experience. In fact, there was often a nurse or a former nurse doctor on board. But our sort of fallback position was we had a large freezer.
Okay.
If we had to take any bodies home, they could put in the freezer.
Okay.
Okay, well, yeah.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Gary. That was just an amazing description of your journey, Jeff, and it's been a great pleasure having you and Doug with us today. And as Kevin mentioned earlier, we have recorded the session and it's going to be uploaded in a few days. And there will be 2 links, one for the Probus meeting and Jeff's direct link. So Jeff and Doug, with our thanks, please feel free to leave the meeting and bon voyage.
Merci beaucoup. À bientôt. À la prochaine fois.
Oh, merci.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jeff. Bye, Doug.
Oh, that was.
We didn't get a chance to ask him where his next voyage is.
So our thanks, guys, and that was just amazing. And our next meeting will be on April 15th, and we're going to go in a different direction. Next month, we're going out of this world when Paul Delaney joins us to take us to Mars.
Oh, wow.
So please stay now for a few minutes longer, and we're going to try and set up some breakout rooms. A good chance to get together and chat for a few minutes. And when you go into the breakout room, you're going to have to agree to join the session and then unmute your computer. And so let's see how that goes. And I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance and your interest and your enthusiasm. Okay, I'll pass it over to you, Bob.
Yeah, I can't stay for the breakout room.